Now let's look at in more detail how ATP and NADPH are produced during the light reactions. Let's first put into context what we're talking about. Remember, in the chloroplast, you have these thylakoid membranes and the stroma. Now, within the thylakoid membranes, you also have this thylakoid space, which will play a more prominent role in part of this chemiosmotic reaction. And again, of course, we have the stroma, or the fluid, within the chloroplast where part of the light reactions occur. So let's first take a moment to draw a bit of a membrane for the thylakoid. Okay? So this will be representing our thylakoid membrane. And within this will be the thylakoid space. Outside the thylakoid membrane will, of course, be the stroma, where the Calvin cycle occurs. All right, so keep in mind light drives this process. These photons of light are absorbed by pigments in photosystem 2, and then those energized or excited electrons are passed down through the complex of proteins involved in the electron transport chain. So there's our ETC. And in doing so, they release energy for the production of ATP through chemiosmosis. Now, how this works is that as these electrons are being passed down through the electron transport chain, energy is used to pump hydrogen ions through the thylakoid membrane into this thylakoid space. So we start to accumulate hydrogen ions within this area. Now, we also recall that in giving up its hydrogen ions, molecules within photosystem 2 are oxidized, so we need to get more electrons back for photosystem 2, and that's where water comes in. So water is split apart. When water is split apart, I'm sorry, I need to draw water inside there. When water is split apart, oxygen is released as a waste gas, and then again, hydrogen ions can be released into this thylakoid space. All right, so that happens with photosystem 2. On to photosystem 1. Light strikes yet again and sets in motion the reactions that excite other electrons that pass through a second electron transport chain. And then the low energy electrons are eventually going to pass through an enzyme in the thylakoid membrane called NADP plus reductase. So it's ACE, it's an enzyme. Reduction is going to be gaining of electrons. It's gaining electrons for NADP plus. So we know what to expect here. NADP plus in the stroma combines with the electrons, low energy electrons from that second electron transport chain to form reduced NADPH. Now there are high energy electrons in this electron carrier that can be used to power the Calvin cycle. The other thing we see here is that we have a high concentration of hydrogen ions in this thylakoid space. Now remember that these like charges will repel one another, plus we've got a concentration gradient. So now we have this proton motive force that has been created. So now what will happen is the process of osmosis. These protons will push one another out of the thylakoid space into the stroma, and in doing so provide energy that can do work for the cell. Now, remember back from the cellular respiration chapter, there is an important protein in this membrane. It's called ATP synthase. Now, this protein allows hydrogen ions to pass through. As the hydrogen ions pass through the protein, it powers the conversion of ADP, adenosine diphosphate, and inorganic phosphate into high energy ATP, the energy currency of the cell that can also do work with the Calvin cycle to create sugars from glucose or from carbon dioxide. So in summary, the light reactions through a series of steps take energy from light and convert it to chemical energy in the form of ATP and NADPH. These molecules, as electron carriers or as energy molecules, are then used in the Calvin cycle to produce sugars. Now, the energy is passed from photosystem 2 to photosystem 1 via an electron transport chain. That electron transport chain uses the energy from the fall of these electrons to pump hydrogen ions into the thylakoid space. As those hydrogen ions flow out down their electrochemical gradient through ATP synthase, it's going to power the generation of ATP. Additionally, as electrons flow from photosystem 1 down through their electron transport chain to this enzyme, NAP reductase, the energy released by the fall of those electrons couples with this enzyme to combine NADP plus hydrogen ions and electron to form NADPH, which again will provide the electrons, the reducing power, to help create sugars in the process. There's a fantastic diagram in your book, figure 1017. I would certainly recommend taking the time to walk through this and making sure you're comfortable with the processes of chemiosmosis and the reduction of water into, or the oxidation of water to form NADPH. Awesome.